when you come across the idea of who Tony Cashman is, you know what you're going for, even on a sentimental level. If you hear about his ideas being as far as a cartooning kind of person, cartoonist kind of person, if he's ever mentioning any of the Nickelodeon shows, for this derogation alone, so far, Jimmy Neutron, Fairly Odd Parents, SpongeBob SquarePants, all, again, depictions of cartoons, okay? So that's already what it would depict about what that traditional web art or digital art is saying, okay? That's not to say that the syndication of that is bad. It's just that that's just what it looks like for. When you depict that as Tony Cashman, that's already what you're working with. And I'm not trying to be controversial, being controversial. That's already, we're in 2024 for this sake alone. We're not in 1997. We're not in 2002. We're not in 2005, 2004, 2003. We're not in 2011 or 2010. This is 2024, okay? That's how real it gets if you want to stereotype that controversy, okay? That's what it would look like. So, living life as if you have to be a stereotype doesn't have to only be a lie either. But a lot of times, if the years you're going through feel like they have a certain mood to them that you want to follow through with, I don't blame you for wanting to work with them. But the thing with having a main pathway that you already want to divert from, it does not mean that the main pathway can only fail. What it means is that there's more than one way to do certain things. Now, you tell us my dad, who's already been a really good foundational person, you know, John Byard Cashman Jr. This guy has actually been very well founded. He has been able to hold steady to things that he believed in, even if they were too bare bones and bare minimum. Doesn't matter. He still cared about his own virtues. So when he gives me the suggestion when I'm about 7 to 10 years old that maybe I should try to be a cartoonist, he's not trying to set me up for failure. He's not ignoring what I think I want. He's not even trying to ignore me on purpose. Of all things, he was my master splinter in the moment. He was the person who would focus and pay attention to me. A lot of what Dad does is that he does not ignore his sons, particularly Cashman, particularly Tony. He does not ignore me. And he does not make it look like he has to get back at me or even regret what he would do to me if he actually was drunk. Okay? Whenever he is plastered or hammered on the alcohol, he was never going to be like, okay, I have to already call him autistic retard. No, that will go to his grave. And even John Michael knew that. And that was the thing with him, is that Michael would not ever tell me if you're going to already fuck this up on purpose, I might as well call you autistic. And that's not what he would go down to. It happens to be that hard on him anyway, so for John Michael, it was already that bad. It's a tragedy that everyone has my opinion to this year alone. That's with Dad and John, okay? Then we got Sylvia mom, Liao, Ray and Wooly, and then the immediate family of 5 or 6, you don't care with it. And then, if I, as carefully as I want to word this, any other person I mention or don't mention in interchangeable loops in this 2024 year. This is how brutal shadow work can be. You'll see this no matter where you go. There are truths to a lot of things that are absent. There are truths to a lot of things that are not impossible to change, and there are truths to things that must change. Okay. Awakening never ends, and shadow work probably should keep going anyways. What led me to getting to the point of being a non-Christian, because don't get me wrong, guys, I love nihilism, I respect atheists, I do see it that I do remain somewhat apparent with Christian values as I've grown up non-religious tradition with that alone, with religion by itself. But what gets me to the point of being a loyal astrologer and tarot reader is not that I don't want to remember how I got here. A lot of people will tell me, oh, Tony only wanted to hide. No. You know how I get here, guys? I never hide. It's quite the contrary, right? I never hide. So if I look like I'm giving up, I'm actually probably not giving up in the first place. It is very, very keen that you get this through yourselves. Not through your heads. I'm not trying to be rude. But that's the key here. Is that I was someone who literally never gave up on myself. And it looked like I did that anyways, didn't it? Right? Because it looked like I threw away opportunities of my lifetime on things that would not have been fake enough. There are people who you'll go through this in your own lives, guys. Any generations ahead of Alpha and Generation Glass, you'll see this happen. I swear this is traditional as it is inherent. You'll see people who throw away things two-facedly as if they don't know what they're doing. They're not all like that. In fact, some of them aren't even two-faced to begin with. See, pay attention to how Auntie Karen from Entry to College 3 does this. She, as a Gemini, she is not actually a hypocrite. A lot of what counts as actual advice is never going to actually be as consistent or linear as you would think it would be. That's why even people like her are very misrepresented. Like, she actually has a tragedy in the sense that her 12th house placements and her, like, you know, her deeply delved occult measures are not vain just because she's some kind of, witch doctor. Whoa, not, well, maybe, because not gonna lie, there is something phantasmal about how she's clever, but we still have to be nice to her in the first place, and not because we can't criticize what she's doing. You saw me wear the sunglasses in the Agris Class Theory video. You saw me wear them, Digipro style. You saw me wear them. I know that I'm wearing sunglasses when I do that. I know that I change my perception when I do that. So when I do that, is my goal to only not know what I'm doing? Is my goal to actually not care about how I got here, or what I'm trying to observe differently? No. That's the point. I wanted to be able to talk about the death jab and the Kuf narrative my own way. I absolutely wanted to, without getting in trouble or making a big deal about something I didn't know anything about. But here's the thing. With anything related to the coronavirus or the COVID-19 thing, and anything related to anything I wanted to do with my life, like, if I never wanted to be a cartoonist, then why would I still care about science and math? If I never wanted to have friends, then why was I extrovert? No, what's the answer? If I wanted to only focus on being actually here as Tony Cashman, then why was I already Hail Parrot every 10? This is not easy to delve into in your own life. You do not want to pay attention to the things in your life that already stand out just because you're trying your best. I think people know to the T what Tony Cashman really was, and they just didn't want to have to admit it. Like, they don't want to play a Schrodinger's cat attitude with me of being like, you know, as soon as I tell Tony this, I'll screw over his mission. No. You have to be honest with that. You have to be brave about that. You have to not be afraid. If that Schrodinger's cat like mentality had actually been true for half things I was going through, then no one would tell me anything. That's how depressing it would get. It would actually get that depressing. People would avoid telling you things for the length of time. I think, when he gets older, you'll understand. I would understand in the moment. I never really to tell to this day what the people meant by duress. Like, sparing my feelings when I actually want to. I will talk about Garrett and Bowman and like Billy and AJ for the test of time, and I know that I'm talking about Orphan, Raven, Furlong in different ways, and Bullets and Splat and Y8, and I know I'm talking about people from like Waltrip and Hamilton and Lone Star and Westview and Homeschool. I know I'm doing that, and Kroger. I know that I'm doing that, but you have to keep in mind, this is the limitations I have. Not because I'm still in Houston, Texas, but because I'm still the version of myself that I want to maintain while still changing and growing as a person. So when I'm not getting a college education, I might want to hide behind the idea that it's fear of missing out, but I'm not missing out things that I already have right now. There are things that people would kill for that I have right now, and it's not because of me being full of myself. This is not because I choose to be a cartoonist or a stop motion animator. It's because I choose to be authentic regardless. Guys, I'm sorry if I hurt you throughout my life story, my lifetime for that matter. At age 27, I never wanted to admit that since 27 years ago, March 4th, 1997, that I was the kind of person who would only not know who he was because he didn't know who he was and how he got here and what he was doing. I mimic that Terra Teen Titans arc very closely. It is kind of weird that I sculpted a claymation figure of her after people had already been making videos about her. Not just the reviews, but even that one girl who did that one woman who went to a comic convention dressed up like her. And people actually pointed that out. They would point out to her, like, no one really thinks about dressing up as Terra. No shit. I think that was my monetization. No one thinks like that because it's a very weird placed archetype. It's like, it represents a northern United States character, that's like someone you would see like a northern U.S. state, like the average every girl, but so it's like a cliche on one end, but on the other it's like, okay, but that's still complicated because what she goes through is authentic, but it doesn't belong in a kids cartoon. But when you want your kids cartoons to be dark and edgy, then the market has to weigh in a way where it's not too dark and edgy, right? Cartoon Network had that tragedy for a long time. They never wanted to weigh out against people who knew what they were doing and still not fuck it up. Okay, They weren't trying to be a CN was never trying to be a smart about that. Warner Brothers was never trying to be a smart about that. Lego didn't want to do that. Not even like Ira Williams running One More Level. No one was ever going to be that stupid on purpose. They never wanted to do the wrong thing on purpose to get the right thing to happen. And even if that it deserved that edginess, that storyline, that kind of like entertainment value, quality content, quality over quantity, if that was actually the case, then we would not be bantering Hollywood and television and film with the internet and YouTube, okay? That wasn't the goal. You had to be yourself. You had to be less hard on yourself and still know what you were doing. But to actually authentically broadcast yourself, your goal isn't to not only be better than everyone else. You should actually try to be yourself. If who you really, Base Fuzz would say like this, I still, for some reason, I strongly agree with him, and I have that weird disoriented opinion with that within my own brain. If you know somehow what I'm saying, or I would believe Zarius saying that opinion, and I would believe him with that strong of a mindhead, and I would act like, why do I believe like that within itself? Basically, if it was that easy to not be authentic and still be careful, then you're being too hard on the things that are earned, but it makes no sense. This is like kind of like what like Dr. K would say. It's kind of like where maybe even Orion Terrapin, where you cannot hide in your head, even as a very, very healthy female philosophy of a tool to problem solve. That's the female philosophy. It's the tool to problem solve. And Becca and some of the other female psychologists are right about that. They already are. Like, more than Orion is about not hiding from yourself. What Orion's touching on is that you can't hide from your own recklessness, which is also true. But, so when Zarius says being yourself might not be actually be enough, he's also onto something himself. When Revis Desu talks about Agatha all along, and he's very stoic and diplomatic about why that did not do well in the market, he's onto something too. When D'Angelo continues to do YouTube in a very humble way that I think Crimer would love the hell out of right now, I mean Moriarty would, anyone who resembles the Paka character from Once Within Deca Genome, the anime, which is an underrated manga and anime, that would be quite a thing of praise. And then you still see like plenty of people caring about that on TikTok, which would not be different if you didn't know what people care about. But for me to not realize that looking for like-minded interests in people as its own cheat code is not actually true, then you can see why I see it like that. You really could. But I do see why it makes sense that you don't want to only be authentic. Because people who are truly themselves, who are being represented as people only being bad people, that's not possible. There's a reason you get here. It's not entropic, it's not cynical, it's not religious. It's psychological. If you can get this far coordinatively and navigationally, there is an essence of truth to how you do it. Not that it has to only be good or bad. But say, like the United States of America, right? Like everything you think about politics, or the bald eagle on the front of the plastic flag with the red and white stripes, you know, patriotism, all that. Keep in mind, yes, I'm an anarchist. Boo-hoo. But let me get there later, okay? There's a reason we get this far. And whatever you have to innovate or maintain getting to that forwards is not because it has to change. Everything will still change regardless. But the things that are maintainable are not meritable by what is founded or permanent, okay? That's not the point. You can't change that 1 + 1 = 2. You can't change that the sky is blue in an inherently subjective, objective sense, okay? That was already the point. But in spite of that physics, as per the quantum physics, you cannot deny that these truths were more good than bad. Which is why coordinatively and navigationally, your essence of good, of heroism, of actually being a truly moral person that knows how judgment works, right? How being used as example works. I'm sorry, guys. That's too soy. It really is. It's like not wanting to be judged or be used as an example. That's too soy. That's way too soy. It's like, it's more soy than my soy sauce being half Taiwanese. I'm sorry, chink-wise. Yeah, I like chink. Yeah, like a chink. That's too soy. You have to but at the same time though, is Zarius right about there being no such thing as a war against spirituality or male masculinity. He's wrong about that. You know why? Because he's denying the possibility. In addition to denying the essence of the truths that affects people's minds, when you affect their mentality, you in turn change their reality. And Zarius cannot ignore that, even if he's already right about part of that. But to deny red pill or MGTOW on some of their own truths and wisdoms would be the same thing as denying atheism and nihilism and some other Aristotle Plato things I don't even research in my own time. I never even research philosophy in my own time. And the people who tell me I'm not a philosopher in those other words, it's fine. But these are things that you cannot change even if they have to change. It's a paradox, isn't it? I'm never really good, as a very central based thinker, I'm never really good about placing objective humor and objective fact on things I really should have. I should have confirmed at least something by now, or one or more things. What I do instead, though, which is gracious enough, is I confirm one or more ways where everyone can win. And my dad notices a lot of things. He notices that I have very pleasant hugs. He notices that I don't have to like give up on myself. He notices the insightful things I tend to say in my own words in my mouth. And he notices that I actually am a creative person. I really wish people would clear that up with me ahead of time. Like, why I was creative, like, what I could do with creativity that wasn't vain to, like, some kind of fantasy. Like, what would actually have made different things, even if it wasn't necessarily being cartooning, or web art, or digital art, or, like, you know, art and animation, and not the medical animation, no, actually, like, Star vs. Evil kind of bullshit. I'm sorry, that's how I internalize that. It's like, if I have to be creative, and it's not true like that, as after having a choice, then why do I not know why I'm accidentally avoiding science and math? Why wouldn't I know that? This is one of the weirdest things that happens to people, even if it has more or less to do with autism spectrum disorder, okay? Being diagnosed at age 3 did change that a lot for me, for better or worse. But the problem with the early diagnosis is that, for me, like, the diagnosis was the easiest part, but realizing that I was creative wasn't. So, like, for age 3, it's like piece of cake, right? But then realizing that I'm creative at age 7 is like, okay? Can I change that? No, because both autism and creativity are permanent for me. So what's vain there? Is it that I'm afraid of being misunderstood for being autistic? Or being misunderstood for being creative for the rest of my life? I'd say the latter for its own stereotypical guaranteed truth. But even truth bullying changes that differently. If I'm going to be bullied like Mackena for believing something that I actually didn't want to be used as an excuse to set boundaries and healthy boundaries at that point, then I'm not being a jerk. I'm not being a jackass. Mackena McLean's not being a jerk when she does that. She has to. Everyone has to have boundaries. But the silly boundaries are the ones where you're going to already be vain to how you get here, and even when you're wrong, why that's the case. And I don't want to act like I have to be right, but that's what I would do. That's what I would do with Sarah's 26 and Marchcraft. That's what I would do with Hale Predator, Araby 10, Razor Recon, Brill Bishop, PlayStation 32, March Scarf, and Outer Crosswind. A lot of these accounts were my idea of, like, supposedly pretending to be bipolar or pretending to have multi-personality disorder. And instead of masking, which I still think masking is bullshit. If I do it myself, I guess I'm in denial. As well as being denial by mistakes and regrets, if any. I obviously have mistakes, I just don't realize what they are yet. Right? I don't blame Frank for telling me how to be better about my own philosophy and stoicism. I don't blame these people for telling me that I really am a beautiful person and not telling me directly as much as they would. They probably already told me anyways, I didn't pay attention. Even if it looks like all they do is smile at me like, that's a good guy right there. Tell me, damn it. Tell me I am to my face while you're still staring at me right in front of me. But I love you guys, and not just because I'm a Pisces, okay? Sun and Venus. I work hard, not because I'm Taurus rising. I'm very good. I'm very good about how I want to use my money continually as a Capricorn moon. Closet Aquarius. Now the Closet Aquarius really threw me off. I knew deeper down that the reason I would pursue cartooning and claymation was to find out the life story tragedy behind why I could not pursue science and math. And this really pissed me off for many years. That's a part of me that was angry and disgusted. But what wasn't obvious was, like, why I pretended to be a sociopath and why I couldn't tell I had emotions while people had emotions. And when Dr. K mentions that it's the emotions that dictate your logic, that's what really got me into perspective. I wasn't angry then, and for other reasons I wouldn't know the difference of. There's John Wick and we can win that there, but what seemed to change in the meantime was that if I didn't know that logic was maintained by emotion, then of course I didn't know what level logic was. There are people who even lace together like logic and morals. When I made good evil on Creditbots, I was going for Crab was logic, Darg was, or Jaddle, right, that's it for now. Darg was emotion. Lloyd and Jack would represent morals and justice significances. So for a Crab the Clockwork character being like, okay, I can't speak or anything, I have cryptograms for every like digital label of my sentences and words and letters. Why is that so important? How did I know how to design Crab the Clockwork without telling anyone at Hamilton about it? For the most part, only telling Incredibots and then still not making sense in the first place, let alone talking too much. In 2010, 2011, or 2009, 2008, 2012, those sort of things, and it's like, okay, but those are long years though, not if they're short, different. And so this is the same thing. It was the same thing with and Sword, Christopher Feather, and the guest of the Algebras gang in high school. When I was in Wall Trip, I designed that for my math comic. I didn't even do the math comic in like middle school too, but even the Chagan for like Hamilton with Wall Trip was like, okay, with Wall Trip it was like I will still design algebras inspire my tragedy going forwards, because halfway through my life, even to the Chagan my goddaughter, I'm not telling myself I have to know what my tragedy is. Until later, I would do that with Emma Townsend a little bit differently. Really, right? Because with Emma, the case was not so much the relationship or the romance. It was the actual life quest stuff, as per the life calling, that causes the drama in the conflict to begin with, and the cancel culture, that almost gets me expelled right before graduation. And that's not even the fear that I would monger, more than not being able to go to Spain, France, and Italy, than even knowing that I was a traveling spirit by heart, wanting Richard Elena style, and still running with my problems like 10 or 15 times, okay? These arc tropes you do not have to know in the meantime, and it's okay, because this is how life works. It's how the world works. It's not how it has to happen, but it does happen. So what is a lot maintained with 1 + 1 = 2, and the tropes I don't hear about in the meantime. There are some negative tropes I hear about in my head. I imagine these ideas, but they probably already exist. You're an American citizen, act like one. If I never heard that before, that's the reason why. Because I'm not Northern. I'm not Northern U.S. United States person. Okay, I'm from the South U.S. But like, South Central. Now you know I'm from Texas. You already knew that. Houston, Texas. I never had to leave Houston, Texas to change as a person. Technically, I did. I mean, some of you guys know I've been to Alabama before. Colorado as well a few times. Handful more than that. You do not need to change the location to change the person. And you know this. Because I do too. Already. At age 27, I not only look young, feel young, and actually behave like someone who's like 47 but still 7. Naive 7. Wise beyond years and years 7. Years with what years and years. 47 and 7. Naivety and wisdom, okay? I don't want to have to be a know-it-all. I don't want to have to actually literally be the most important person of all time. If that's an ambitious goal, then why not permanently commit suicide? Because that was the point. I didn't want to have to put a noose around my head at like age 11 or 10. Years 20,000 to 2011. If I actually put a noose around my neck at age 14 or 13, do you know how devastating? Like my dad and my mom would have killed themselves too. They actually would have. They would like my mom would be devastated if I killed myself at that age, at Mackena's age. I know Dad knows who Mackena is. I know Gopon knows sentimentally, in this proverbial plane, who Mackena is. Okay, I wish that she could have seen him. But I didn't even know who she was yet. So it was like, considering that Mackena's been alive half my lifetime before I turned 27, she turned 14, like 13 and 26, this comes to a really good close. I am not giving up on Mackena, okay? I'm not giving up on myself. The Tony Cashman I expect to be is a cartoonist. It is a stop-motion animator. But I am Mackena's father. My life already began, and it has yet to keep going.